oh hey, that indie rhythm game that I'd been following the development of for a few years is finally released. How about I just give it a quick play and... Wow. I expected to like this game. Hell, I expected to love it. I wasn't expecting new favorite game of all time love it. Warning, the following video will contain spoilers for Unbeatable, and is written under the assumption that you've played the game. If you intend to experience the game yourself and haven't yet, I'd advise coming back later after you've finished the game. Unless you're one of those people where learning a spoiler or two actually makes you more interested, in which case, keep watching until something does catch your attention. Or don't. I'm not a cop. There have been many pieces of media out there where I've started engaging with them, and around some point I've said, yeah, I'm experiencing something special here. Hell, this isn't even the first game this year I've played that's made me feel like that, but damn, Unbeatable really felt like it dug right into my brain to handcraft a narrative that would hit me in every emotional and creative neuron possible. Yeah, the new favorite game of all time comment from earlier was no exaggeration. I loved the game that much. And I think a huge part of that is the story of the game's protagonist, Beat. You know that gag in Chapter 4 where there's that one NPC that keeps insisting on calling Beat unbeatable, an obvious parody on the meme of calling Samus Metroid, Link Zelda, Kiryu, Yakuza, etc. Even the running gag of the translator making notes completely gives up and says, yep, that's her, that's unbeatable. And it's presented like a joke, but it's not exactly wrong. Beat is unbeatable. And unbeatable is Beat. Naraja is true. What I actually mean by this is regardless of whether you believe the theory that the music world is actually another world Beat's consciousness is dragged to, or the theory that it's all a dream that Beat is having in her head while she's in her coma, which we will now for time's sake be calling isekai theory and dream theory respectively, almost every character Beat encounters in this story mirrors an aspect of her life in some way or another, and it's something I didn't really think about until the sequence of third into the finale where Beat talks to Quaver about their shared sadness over the loss of their mothers. And then once that hit me that the two main characters had that in common, after that, while the credits were rolling, I started thinking about all the different members of the cast and what they have in common with Beat. So today, we will be going through the weird and wonderful cast of Unbeatable to see what they have in common with Beat, and how they all foreshadow her backstory that, while hinted to us constantly throughout the game, is only really shown to us in full during the final chapter. So to start, let's have a quick recap of Beat's backstory so we know what we're actually dealing with here. Beatrice, nicknamed Beat by pretty much most people she knows, is one of two siblings to a seemingly single mother. Beat quickly grew up to find that she had a passion for music, and begins trying to learn guitar from a young age, and also finds herself getting into various troublesome situations as she grows up. In her young adult years, she goes on to get a job and joins a band, and all seems well, but not long after that, her mother is diagnosed with cancer. Things start taking a tumble for Beat as this starts messing with her head, causing her to be way more unorganized. She keeps being late for work and for band practice until she loses her job, and to top it all off, her band kicks her out, while still using the songs she wrote for them and taking credit for them, to put some extra salt onto that wound. And when it feels like it couldn't get any worse, her mother finally loses her fight against cancer, and Beat's last interaction with her? Yelling at her due to all the stress, sadness, and anger she has bottled up, a horrible mistake that only hits her when she receives a voicemail from her mother made to be one last goodbye. Beat eventually tries to get back on track with music, studying it in higher education, but due to her and her sister's financial situation, she instead drops out, also implied to be influenced by her dwindling interest in music. Her sister keeps trying to help her get her life back together, but Beat pushes back more and more each time until she's eventually full-on trying to cut her out of her life entirely. It seems that sometime after this, Beat finally tries one last all or nothing in the form of performing at a bar. It seems to be implied that she's met with no applause and runs out of the bar mortified and distraught that the one thing she had left, her love for music, was also gone. And one final note to this awful time in her life. A nearby truck spins out of control, and it hits her hard. Luckily, she isn't killed, but she is left comatose, which is where the events of the game begin. The game doesn't tell you any of this at the start, it's only revealed towards the back end of the game, but Most of this backstory for Beat is represented somewhere in the game, usually through the other characters or even the world itself. This is why I tend to be more on the dream interpretation of the music world. Not that I think necessarily that the isekai theory isn't valid, and I understand for some people dream theory might devalue the story to them. I personally don't think it does, and I'll explain why later, but for now, let's talk about the music world itself and how it parallels to Beat's real-world life. The events of this game are kicked off by two tragic events, one in the real world and one in the music world, both being the death of either protagonist's mother, an event that completely turns things on their head. In the real world, it causes Beat to lose her passion for music and, well, life in general, and in the music world, it leads to the outlawing of all music. Beat bans herself from playing music because it makes her feel awful, reminds her of being kicked from the band, yelling at her mother in her final days, and how she just thinks she's not good at music. And in turn, in the music world, music is banned. Pun not intended. And it's banned because it makes people feel strong emotions that the silence monsters are attracted to. You see the parallels here? The game's antagonists are a fascist group because fascism feasts on fear, and the desires to enslave those under it. Beat is afraid of her music and is enslaving herself from the things she loves. I mean, the game is also trying to say fascism is bad because, like, you know, that's obvious, but I at least hope you all knew that. But it should be apparent to you now that the music world is based on Beat's current life situation, and so are the characters, so let's start going through them as well, starting of course with... I already explained Quaver's parallel at the start of this video. Both her and Beat are dealing with the loss of their mother. Quaver's motivation for joining the band is to try and get to know her legendary rockstar mother better by visiting places she liked and playing guitar, much like her, because her mother died when she was very young. During the ending of the game, she almost gives up on this until Beat has that absolutely heart-wrenching talk with her about how repressing her emotions is worse than feeling them, even if those emotions are negative, which is what I personally believe is meant to be the message of the entire game. Quaver is a very important character, and there are a lot of smaller ways she mirrors Beat too, as will happen when she is essentially the game's second protagonist. Or hell, I'd say some people might even go as far as to say that this game is more Quaver's story than Beat's, something which, if you're reading into my interpretation here, I don't necessarily agree with, but I can definitely see the argument for. Anyway, on to our next subject, or rather, in this case, subjects. Clef and Treble, the dynamic duo themselves. These two characters are pretty easy to figure out. They represent Beat's rocky relationship with her sister. Clef/Beat being the reckless rowdy sibling, and Treble/Beat's unnamed sister being the one who's more grounded, mature, and controlled. Unlike with Beat and her sister though, Clef and Treble are a lot more healthier sibling relationship, able to disagree and argue with each other without damaging their relationship seriously. Clef and Treble are able to be so blunt with each other because they care, and it's in that we see the mistake Beat is making by pushing away her sister who just wants to help her.
It must have been so hard growing up without parents. You two have overcome so much together.
But now with the main band members covered, it's time to talk about the antagonist characters, starting with... Okay, you know what, I will admit, I had a lot of trouble thinking of a way this guy parallels Beat, but I did think of something. Towards the end of the game, when Cress realizes that harm is rotten to the core, he tries to report the corruption to a news outlet, who proceeds to not take him seriously, and that outcome leaves him distraught. I think this could be in parallel to Beat's desperate last attempt to get into music through her bar performance, which falls apart, but I admit this is probably the biggest reach in this entire video. Besides representing Beat's hatred of the police, DC stands out as one of the two antagonists to not really have any redemption or atonement in some form, or at least be shown to consider how they've fucked everything up by the end. In fact, DC doubles down, and Beat completely gives up trying to reason with him. This could represent how Beat, after her mother's death, only seemed to dig herself into deeper and deeper shit, unemployment, overdue rent and bills, and refusing any and all help, until her sister seemingly gives up on her. Beat now knows, after talking to DC, what it's like on the other side of that coin, and probably understands her sister's perspective a lot better now. Poco and Apico. The other dynamic duo in this game, except I don't actually think this one relates to Beat's sibling situation that much. Poco and Apico represent the shame Beat feels of being a failure. They seem to always be there to witness Beat's biggest losses and kick her while she's down. And they could also represent her old band who also kicked her while she was down. These twins pursue journalism because they enjoy it, but as they went on, they got more and more cynical and it became just a job to them. Perhaps the band kick Beat out because they don't believe she has what it takes to help them bring the band to stardom, fame, and by proxy, profit. As they tell Beat pretty much to her face that they don't think she has the spark nor the looks to cut it.
Why does it hurt at all, though, if you're so above it all? If you didn't care about the thing you did? Just admit you give a shit. What are you embarrassed about?
Poco and Apico end on a pretty happy note compared to most of the antagonists. Dare I say they might end up a little too consequence-free by the end. But for fulfilling the story's themes of accepting your emotions, having the two's mask of pure business no pleasure melt away and that they realize that they love what they do is a pretty good way to end the story of the twins off. Rest is a very important character. She's the big bad head of harm, and well, it feels like what Rest represents is what I went over in the section when we were talking about the music world at large. Beat's falling out of love with music. Rest is the one who took harm and used it to completely repress any and all music in the world. She did this despite being in a band herself, and it's worth noting the silence that got Eve killed was summoned by Rest's fear that the band would stop being friends after their last performance. Not too similar to how Beat's friends eject her from the band when she stops being useful. Also worth mentioning, Rest in the last chapter is trying to atone for her actions, but Beat reminds Rest pretty damn clearly that she's done some awful shit she can't take back, and she can't really play the "I tried my best" card.
I did my best. Ugh, oh come on. You don't get that one. You facilitated a borderline fascist police state. I feel like that revokes any getting to say you did your best rights. They were fascists before I got there. And you facilitated them? Alright, fine. I am doing my best now. You're trying.
Beat has also done some awful things she can't take back, and while obviously, yes, yelling at your sickly mother is nowhere near as evil as enforcing a fascist police-ruled state, these characters do parallel in that they've both done really shitty things that it's kinda too late to take back. They can't repair the damage they've done, the only thing they can really do is atone for the mistake. I should clarify that a character redeeming themselves and a character atoning for their actions are two different things entirely. I could go into detail, but it could be its own video entirely on its own, so we're gonna just leave it with that clarification. Now there is one last character we should go over, and that is Sforzando is the game's main antagonist, and if you ask me, the perfect foil for Beat. Beat's story in this game is one about learning to open up and embrace emotions even when that emotion is feeling like shit, because it's better to feel hurt than feel nothing. It's better to embrace your true self even if not everyone understands it than it is to hide behind a mask. Sforzando is a character whose metaphorical mask is stuck to her face. She can't put anything she feels down to just being personal feeling or subjectivity. Any emotion she feels must be scientifically backed with facts, objectivity, and research, and she can't enjoy anything without that. It's pretty damn clear that she's obsessed with Beat, but her obsession with objectivism and research leads to that affection taking a sinister form, toying with Beat to see what she can get her to do, and physically pushing her to her limit to see what actually being made of silence means she can do. I believe this is what they call in the fandom business, toxic Yuri. Even during her time disguised as Penny, her objectivism kinda slips out when we hear her mix of the band's song. She completely removes the grungy sound from the mix, making it sound more clean and sanitized, and what she thinks would make an objectively good mix.
You did this in a day? Well, yeah.
I say the lines, the syllables, got it memorized so I can make you stop. You treat me like a criminal. So why shouldn't I treat you like you're a cop?
Like DC, Sforzando doesn't end up getting redeemed by the end, and I think that's pretty fitting for everything her character stands for, going as far as to refuse to even so much as apologize, having no regrets about everything she did, because she can't just swallow her damn pride, which in turn only motivates Beat and Rest to defy her even more, allowing Beat to rip off her own metaphorical mask. Beat, as the protagonist of Unbeatable, represents the main thing the game is all about, embracing emotion. Beat at the start of the game bottles everything up because every time she says how she feels, she ends up either hurting someone or herself. It makes her grow numb to her life falling apart around her. It makes it easier for her to distance herself from the few things that once gave her happiness, and makes her push everyone she still has left in her life away. She tries to act like she doesn't care that her band left her in the dust, while boiling in the sheer envy of watching them go on to use a song she helped create to go on to find success without her.
It wasn't your song anymore.
It never really was mine. I just sang it. But there it was, with his voice, and he had made it, and I hadn't, and I just wished I was something at all. Not even the best, just something.
And she's absolutely desperate for help as bills pile up and she struggles to find work, but when her sister offers her help, she snaps at her for looking down on her.
I hate to think you're just rotting in there by yourself.
Is that what you think I'm doing?
Come on, you know what I mean.
No, I want to hear you say it.
She mourns the loss of her mother, who was the most important person in her life, but as time goes on, afraid of the sadness that those thoughts of her come with, she chooses to try and block the memories out of her head, a horrible mistake that she doesn't want to see repeat with Quaver.
I have too much trouble carrying my own life. I have no space to carry death, too. So, I don't even think about her anymore. I loved her more than I think I've been able to love anything or anyone since. And I don't even think about her anymore. And I don't want that to happen to you.
I think this is why Beat is so willing to go along with Quaver's crazy antics throughout the game, because she knows how it feels to lose a parent and also once found comfort in music like Quaver does. Beat's experiences in the music world allow her to reflect and allow her to get a fresh start. She gets to pursue music again, we get to see her struggle through the difficulties of life, rage against the machine, and of course, learn to open up to her feelings once again. In the end, telling Quaver that it's better to feel hurt than feel nothing, and of course, eventually realizing that this too applies to her.
You're just a part of my life. You're just a part of my life. And you're just a part of my life. And I can't get rid of you.
Then, after one last fight with Harm, she returns to her old world, ready to now practice what she preached. She picks up her guitar again and begins working to mend the broken bond with her sister, who, by the way, was right there watching over her as she awoke from her coma, showing that she still cares despite everything. Beat playing her guitar in her apartment is one of the last things we see in the game, playing the last part of the game's closing song, followed by one last shot of Quaver. How I choose to interpret this myself is that Beat has used this dream/trip to another world as a point of inspiration to make her own album telling the events of the game, one I believe to be made up of the vocal songs we hear throughout the game. Music albums, like any piece of media, can be used to tell a story, and I believe that Beat goes on to make this album based on her dream. Basing creations off of dreams isn't an uncommon phenomenon in real life after all. The hit indie RPG Deltarune was inspired by a dream that Toby Fox had way before he even made Undertale. This is why I think that dream theory doesn't necessarily make the story of the game pointless, like a lot of "it was all a dream all along" stories usually suffer from. This dream meant something to Beat.
I can't stand it, it's brain poison. My mind unravels when I toy with the thoughts it gives me, leave me wishing. But maybe that's why life's worth living.
The story of this game and how it's structured reminds me a lot of the classic children's fable Alice in Wonderland, actually, of all things. in that story, it's not apparent either if the adventure that Alice went through was a dream or something she actually experienced, but it all the same meant something to her, and I think it's kind of the same thing here. But, I mean, what do you think? Do you believe dream theory, or do you believe isekai theory? And why? Feel free to tell me in the comments. I'm genuinely interested to know what you all think of this. There is a statement from one of the game's original creators, RJ Lake, where he said that the characters from the music world are just as real as Beat or anyone else, which is usually the main point against dream theory, but I think even that can be interpreted. If Beat makes this theoretical album, then these become real in the sense that they become in-universe fictional characters that people can experience the story of and find relation to, in the same way that we find relation and meaning in fictional characters, the same way I have found relation and meaning in Beat, the character that is a massive part of why I fell in love with this game. Fair warning now, this is the part of the video where I get a bit sappy. I can't relate to everything Beat goes through, of course. I am very fortunate to have not yet experienced losing a parent, but all the same, that is something that will happen one day, and I think that aspect of Beat's character put into perspective for me how much I take my own parents for granted. But the whole thing with falling out of love with your passions and fearing that nothing you ever pursue will go anywhere, yeah, that hit me. I did actually start playing guitar last year. It's something I've wanted to do for a long time, but funny enough, that's not really why I resonated with that part of the game. I have loved drawing and art for as long as I could remember, and it was around my mid-teens that I really clocked it as something I wanted to keep doing, but over the years I've suffered my setbacks with it. I've gone multiple drawings without being satisfied at the end result once, and I've lost motivation for really long stretches of time. In one extreme case, I think I even went without drawing anything for a year. And it was really this year, actually, that I decided that I wanted to really get back into the swing of it. Like, keep working on art, keep drawing, and just focus on getting better, not worrying too much about the result. And you know what? Looking back at it now at the end of the year, I think I did alright, and I was lucky to have friends who were also artists who were willing to help. Of course, once I swallowed my own pride to actually ask them, and I thank them a lot for that. I don't think I'm some god artist now or anything, but I'm a lot happier with where I'm at as an artist than I was before. I think the other thing is that it's been pretty obvious that I've not really had the motivation to work on this channel this year. Like, this is one of 3 videos that I've uploaded, and one of them was a quick update video. It was actually me playing this game that is the reason I'm here making this video now. I felt this strong need, like, I need to talk about this game, and that's why I'm making this video. But trust me that I still want to keep making videos, right? Like, I'm still dedicated to the whole, like, I don't have a schedule, if I have a cool video, I'll make a cool video thing, right? But, like, I think I could put a lot more effort into it than I am now. You've probably already noticed that I've redesigned my avatar, and I'm gonna have to design a new profile picture for that and everything, and oh boy, that's gonna be some work. But to get back onto the topic of what unbeatable means to me, I think another thing that really stood out to me was, like, the whole part where it's, like, kind of implied that, like, Beat's band went on to be, like, a great success without her. It's like, me and my friend group, we're all very creative people, I want to say, and we all have our own pursuits that ideally could be used to benefit each other, but I do have this fear in the back of my mind sometimes that, like, everyone in my life is going to get ahead of me, and it's going to reach a point where, like, I could never catch up. And, like, so that part of the game really resonated with me as well. This has been a really hard part of the video for me to record, but my point is, this year, I focused a lot on trying to re-find my passion for things that I enjoy doing, and in that sense, Unbeatable kind of came out in a perfect time in my life, being a game about a protagonist trying to reignite the spark of her life after a non-stop barrage of everything feeling like it's crumbling down on her, and closing out the year by playing this game really felt like a reassuring pat on the back, I guess. And that's why Unbeatable has now taken the throne as my favorite game of all time. Call me cringy or corny or whatever, but this game reminds me, with its fun gameplay, great story, and fantastic visuals, and absolutely amazing soundtrack, that whatever I do, I want to put all of me into it, and I want to do my best at it. Could I ever hope to make something that inspired the emotions this game inspired in me, that could inspire those emotions in someone else? I don't know. But there's only one way to find out.